What's up, YouTube? We're just 1 week away from the 2025 NFL Draft. This will for sure be my last mock draft until the draft on Thursday night. So, let's make it a good one. Let's make it, the most realistic possible one. Obviously, with 1 week left to go, I think I can. This will probably be my most accurate mock draft to date. So let's try to predict, exactly how this is going to go. Obviously, kind of impossible, but I'm going to do the best I can here. This is how I think the 2025 NFL Draft will go. Let's do it. Here we go. With the first overall pick, the Tennessee Titans, I think they, in all of I believe, will be my fourth mock draft now. This has been a Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter pick, just because I think they're the best players available here. But it's looking like Cam Ward is going to be the pick for the Tennessee Titans. They don't want Will Levis moving forward, which I can't blame them. Cam Ward is my QB1 in this draft for sure. I just think with the first pick, you usually take the best player available. But, teams, take quarterbacks all the time. So not too surprised about this. But I just think this is going to be the pick because Cam Ward's over there on Fortnite, live streaming, saying, his favorite coach is Brian Callahan, his favorite running back is Tony Pollard, and the best receiver in the league is Calvin Ridley and Treylon Burks. So it's pretty much damn near confirmed that Cam Ward's going to be the pick for the Tennessee Titans. So don't be surprised when this happens. But anyways, Cleveland Browns, it's looking like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter for sure. Shedeur Sanders looks to be out of the picture for the Cleveland Browns. I believe if, Hunter or Carter was the pick at number 1, then the Cleveland Browns would probably take Cam Ward. Their starting quarterback right now is actually Kenny Pickett. But if they can figure that out and maybe trade for like a Kirk Cousins and then, they select who I'm going to take here, Travis Hunter to the Cleveland Browns. If they can, figure out the quarterback situation and not have Kenny Pickett out there as their starting quarterback and have like a Kirk Cousins there, or maybe even a day 2 guy like a Jalen Milroe or a Will Howard who has experience, maybe a Dylan Gabriel who has experience at the highest level. I think this is a team that can actually shock some people. And I think this is actually a pretty good team. I don't know if they're a playoff team in the wild, AFC. But man, this is definitely going to be a solid team if they can just figure out that quarterback situation. I don't think they'll be bad enough next year to select like an Arch Manning or a Cade Klubnik next year. But I like the Travis Hunter pick. I definitely think he's a generational talent. Who knows if he plays both ways in the NFL? I'm not going to, sit here and make a whole, 5-minute rant on if he's going to do that or not. We're just going to see if he does it. But anyways, the New York Giants here, they're meeting with Shedeur Sanders. I believe they're meeting in like tomorrow or something, doing like a third meeting or some shit to see if they want to select the Shedeur Sanders here. But I think Abdul Carter is going to be the pick here. I know they have sort of a loaded edge room right now, and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau out there. But I think that Kayvon Thibodeau or Brian Burns could definitely be a player that's traded on draft night. Just because, if you're selecting Abdul Carter, who to me is like a Micah Parsons 2.0, I'm not just saying that because he went to Penn State and wears number 11. I'm saying that because they genuinely play similar. They play very similar. But man, the New York Giants, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to be the pick, honestly. Like, I think, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston is a good enough quarterback room for next season at least, and maybe even the next 2 years. And maybe, if you suck bad enough, maybe you can get Arch Manning or, a Cade Klubnik. Like I said, those are the top 2 QBs in next year's draft if Arch Manning even decides to come out next year. But man, like Abdul Carter, definitely the best player available at the 3 spot, so I definitely think they should take him. And maybe maybe you can hit on a day 2 guy like a Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe has, a lot of potential. Like I talked about it already in a previous video, my top quarterbacks, in the draft. Make sure you guys go check out that video, by the way. But if you can hit on like a Jalen Milroe in the 2nd round, like I really would like to see Jalen Milroe with the New York Giants. Like I want to see Jalen Milroe genuinely get a shot at being a starting quarterback in the league. Definitely wouldn't take him, for like Anthony Richardson. Like he had no business going with the 4th pick. But anyways, I think the New York Giants here, they should just take the best player available and then figure quarterback out later on in the draft or maybe even next year, like I say, because they have a good enough, starting quarterback room. Sorry, I don't know why I keep saying starting quarterback room. They have a good enough quarterback room for next season in Winston and Russell Wilson. So Abdul Carter's the pick here. Anyways, we got the New England Patriots here. I know a lot of New England Patriots fans are hoping Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter falls into their lap, but I don't think it's going to happen here. I think Will Campbell is going to be the pick. I know a lot of Pats fans because I'm a Celtics fan. I'm not a Pats fan, but I'm a Celtics fan, so I get a lot of Pats fans on Twitter, and I see a lot of their tweets, and a lot of them are not fans of Will Campbell. I get it. He's probably not going to be a tackle. He's probably going to be a guard because of short arms. But I think he's the best offensive lineman in this class. I really still stand by that. I know Armand Membu has shot up boards, but Will Campbell, I think he allowed, one sack in like 2 or 3 years, something ridiculous like that. So Will Campbell, man, I know, some of you, he's not a Joe Alt. Let's just say that. He's not. Joe Alt went with the 4th pick last year. No, 5th. He went with the 5th pick last year. And he was a generational, tackle tight end, had a very, very solid rookie year. Will Campbell is not that. Let's just say that. Will Campbell is not Joe Alt. He's nowhere near Joe Alt, nowhere near the prospect of Joe Alt. But, offensive line, you got to take him where you can get him, and the Patriots have the worst offensive line probably in the league. Definitely a bottom 5, offensive lineman in the league. So Will Campbell should be the pick here and figure everything else out later in the draft. Will Campbell to the New England Patriots. Mason Graham here is going to be the pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've been seeing Jags fans, not specifically Jag fans, but draft people having Ashton Jeanty go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You already have Travis Etienne, and then you got Tank Bigsby as well. There's just too many holes on the team to select an Ashton Jeanty here, which I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because the next pick is probably going to be Ashton Jeanty. Here's what I want to say about the Raiders. I want to give an explanation, though. I think this is a team that can go a variety of ways here. You can go with T-Mac. They still need a wide receiver 1. I think Jacoby Myers is more of a wide receiver 2. But you got Brock Bowers out there who's really, just an elite pass catcher. I think Brock Bowers is a future Hall of Famer. So he's definitely still going to be your best pass catcher, even if you added T-Mac. They can go with Jahdae Barron or Will Johnson. With losing Nate Hobbs and Jack Jones likely going to be released, I don't think they were able to find a trade partner for Jack Jones, so he's likely going to be released. Jahdae Barron or Will Johnson could very well be the picks here. I think they're going to have one of the worst secondaries next year. But, man, here's what I want to say. I understand the argument. You take, Barron or Will Johnson here, and then you select a running back later on in the draft, like a Travion Henderson or a Quinshon Judkins or Caleb Johnson. Or maybe even a Cam Scatterbo, because this running back class is very, very loaded. So maybe you select, a top corner here and then select a running back later on in the draft. But here's what I want to say about Ashton Jeanty. I think Ashton Jeanty, there's a huge gap between Ashton Jeanty and the RB2 in this draft. In my opinion, is Caleb Johnson. Most people have Amarion Hampton as the RB2. I think there's a significant gap to the point where you shouldn't, not select Ashton Jeanty with, a top 10 pick. I believe this guy, I'm not going to say he's a generational talent because, we've seen the Saquons. I don't think he's, a Saquon level prospect. And I believe we say the word generational a little too much. I'll be honest, I say it a little too much. I called Caleb Williams and Drake May both generational talents last year. I'll be honest. But Ashton Jeanty, man, I'm not going to put the word generational on him, but I think he's worthy of this pick. I really, really do think he's worthy of this pick, and I think he's going to prove to be worth it. Ashton Jeanty to the Las Vegas Raiders here. But I understand, if I expect to, receive some, backlash on that pick. Just because, maybe it's not the most logical thing to do here, but I think they need a splash on offense. With Brock Bowers, you added Ashton Jeanty, you got Geno Smith now. Jacoby Myers is a very underrated running back to me. Underrated wide receiver to me. Ashton Jeanty to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think they could build something special. And another thing I want to mention is the Las Vegas Raiders have the worst running back room in the entire NFL. Their starting running back last year was Zamir White and Sean McCormick. Come on, dude. If there's one team that should be taking Ashton Jeanty this high, it's the fucking Las Vegas Raiders. Let's just be honest. Anyways, the New York Jets. I know some of you guys might not like this. You missed out on Brock Bowers last year. I understand Armand Membu could be the pick here, but you selected Olu Fashanu over Brock Bowers last year. are you sure you want to select a tackle over, to me, someone who to me is going to be a stud? I think he's going to be, a star tight end in this league. Tyler Warren, man. Even Colston Loveland wouldn't be bad here, but Tyler Warren is my tight end one. I know 7th pick is a little early, and I don't know a lot of you guys might not want to take a tight end, but look what Brock Bowers did. I know Brock Bowers is a generational, prospect. I had 3 generational prospects last year. No, 4 actually. So I do, throw the word generational. I had Caleb, Drake May, fucking Bowers, and Marvin Harrison Jr. I'll be honest. I say that word a lot. I'm kind of, toning it down a lot. But Tyler Warren, to me, man, I don't think, he's a Brock Bowers level prospect. But since it's the New York Jets and you need a tight end, man, you really do. I like this pick. I like this pick to the New York Jets. I don't think, they make the same mistake. Not that Armand Mambu would be a mistake, because I think he's definitely, going to be a solid, tackle in this league. And he shot up boards for a reason. But Tyler Warren to the New York Jets here. I don't think, they pass up on another stud tight end. But anyways, Will Johnson to me falls into the Carolina Panthers' lap. I think they can go a variety of ways here. The best defensive players on this board here to me, Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron, Jalen Walker, and Mykel Williams. To me, the Panthers should just take the best defensive player available here, and I think it's Will Johnson. I know there's draft fatigue. A lot of people have Jahdae Barron over Will Johnson now. He's the Jim Thorpe award winner, so he's fine with me. Like I would be fine with Jahdae Barron going here. But to me, it's still Will Johnson. Will Johnson only played in 4 or 5 games here, and then he had that foot injury. But Michigan wasn't good in general, honestly. They had some of the worst quarterback play in the country. That had a lot to do with it. But I mean, Will Johnson getting injured definitely didn't help them. But man, I really just think it's draft fatigue with Will Johnson, and it has to do with the fact that we haven't really seen him play in too long since, like I said, week 4 or week 5, whenever he got injured. But to me, it's still, CB1 in this draft. I have Travis Hunter listed as an athlete on my big board. But I still think, Will Johnson is definitely the CB1 in this draft. So Will Johnson to the Carolina Panthers. The New Orleans Saints here, I think they have one of the more interesting picks here. But we just got news that Derek Carr is likely going to be out for the season. So that makes me think this is going to be Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders will be the pick for the New Orleans Saints here if the Giants, the Raiders, and the Jets don't take him, which I honestly don't think it's very likely that the Raiders take him. I think the most likely team to take him out of the Jets, the Giants, and the Raiders, is the Jets. Justin Fields, I don't think he's a long-term fit or a long-term answer for the New York Jets, but we'll see. But if he makes it here, I think Shedeur Sanders to the New Orleans Saints will for sure be the pick, with Derek Carr likely not playing if he opts for that shoulder surgery. So they'd have a quarterback room of Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler. So Shedeur Sanders to me should definitely be the pick here. If you're the New Orleans Saints, and you got Chris Olave, hopefully, a quarterback moving forward. But anyways, the Chicago Bears here, I know a lot of Chicago Bears fans are hoping for Ashton Jeanty. If Ashton Jeanty gets past the Raiders, I definitely think he's the pick for the Chicago Bears, but in this case, he doesn't. I think Jalen Walker falls into the Chicago Bears' laps, and I think if you're a Chicago Bears fan, you should be ecstatic if you can land Jalen Walker with a 10th pick. I think he can go 8 to the Carolina Panthers. I definitely think he could be the pick here. I think Jalen Walker could go as early as 5. I'm going to be honest. Jalen Walker didn't participate in the combine. 2 of the Georgia guys didn't, Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams. A lot of the times we see Georgia guys fall in the draft because of, character concerns or off the field stuff. But in this case, as far as what I know, Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams are fine off the field. They're fine players off the field. So they're slipping because of combine. I don't want you guys to think it's anything else just because, they wear that Georgia. But anyways, San Francisco 49ers, they're a team that can go a variety of ways here. Like I said, losing out on a lot of their players here. Talanoa Hufanga. Who else did they lose? Greenlaw. They lost Deebo Samuel, obviously. But to me, it has to be an offensive lineman pick here. And I think Armand Mambu has really shot up boards. and for the right reason. He had a great, combine, has good measurables. Armand Membu is the pick here. He's sort of, overtaking Kelvin Banks as that second tackle position after Will Campbell, which I know Will Campbell's likely going to move to guard in the NFL. But as far as, best offensive lineman, Armand Membu has the best case to go up against Will Campbell as best offensive lineman in this class. But, with, what's his name? Fuck. Why can I not think of Trent Williams? With Trent Williams getting up there in age, I definitely think this should be the pick if you're the San Francisco 49ers. Armand Membu, definitely think he's going to be a stud. The Dallas Cowboys, in my last 2 mock drafts, I've had T-Mac going to the Dallas Cowboys with Ashton Jeanty off the board. I think T-Mac is the pick here. I really do think T-Mac is the pick here. Similar to Will Johnson, I think this is draft fatigue here. T-Mac was projected to go as early as 4 to the New England Patriots earlier on in the draft season. And like I said, people were just really falling off of T-Mac. And man, if there's one wide receiver I've sort of fallen off on, it is not fucking T-Mac. T-Mac has been consistently my wide receiver 1 throughout this whole draft season. If there's any one wide receiver that has fallen off for me, it is Luther Burden. The more I watch of Luther Burden, the more I do not like. I don't know, man. I'll talk a little bit later on Luther Burden whenever I have him selected, but I've sort of fallen off with him. Anyways, T-Mac to the Dallas Cowboys here. I think CeeDee Lamb and T-Mac has potential to be a top 5 wide receiver duo eventually. I'm not saying it's going to happen in year 1, but with CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion, being the top 3 wide receiver after Chase and Jettas, I think, T-Mac, as long as he's, what I think he can be, I think this can be a top 5 wide receiver duo in the entire league, honestly. T-Mac, man. I like T-Mac. I really, really do. I think he has the potential to take over games. Like, Noah Fifita had sort of a down year, but the Arizona team just was not good. I watched a lot of Arizona this year, and T-Mac, you can just tell, was always the best player on the field on whatever team he played against, honestly. Even playing against Travis Hunter still looked like a stud. I know Travis Hunter was taken out of that game early, but still. Anyways, we got the Miami Dolphins here. So originally this pick was going to be Kelvin Banks here because I think they could definitely beef up the O-line, and to me, he's the best O-lineman available here. But Matthew Golden is a player that I think could also be here with Tyreek Hill he's probably gonna request out. I believe he's like 80. I'm like 80% sure Tyreek Hill is gonna get traded. He hasn't fully requested a trade. He's just like fucking around on Twitter. So who knows if he's actually gonna request that trade? But we do know now that Jalen Ramsey, I don't think it's a requested trade, but it's like a mutual agreement between Miami's front office and Jalen Ramsey that they're going to find a trade partner. So we know that is like certain for sure that he's probably going to get traded on draft night. So now that we know that, I'm going to go Jahdae Barron to the Miami Dolphins here. I think he would actually be the perfect Jalen Ramsey replacement here. But, at first, before I knew Jalen Ramsey was going to be traded, this would not be the pick. They still needed a DB anyways, regardless of Jalen Ramsey requesting a trade. But now that Ramsey is traded, definitely, I think Jahdae Barron is the pick here. I'm pretty comfortable with saying this is likely going to be the pick, unless Will Johnson falls and Barron's, gets picked somewhere up here. But I just think this pick right here is going to be a Will Johnson or a Barron for sure, maybe even Malachi Starks. But anyways, the Indianapolis Colts, in all of 3 of my previous mock drafts, I have had them selecting Tyler Warren. But with Tyler Warren going 7 to the Jets, I know some of you think that's crazy still. But man, I think this pick could be Colston Loveland. I know a lot of people think Colston Loveland's not, this great player just because Tyler Warren's going so early. But Colston Loveland is a top 15 player on my draft big board. I really think this guy is going to be a stud. But I just think the Colts, they can go a variety of ways here. But with some of the defensive players on this, board still, like a Mykel Williams, I don't think they're going to pass on that. Mykel Williams, like I said, another Georgia player who didn't participate in the Combine. I think if he actually participated, this guy would be a top 10 pick. I really like Mykel Williams. I think I had him going as early as 9 in previous, mocks, maybe even 8 to the Panthers. But I like Mykel Williams definitely going to the Indianapolis Colts. The Atlanta Falcons. It is time. It is time to select a damn edge rusher. You didn't select Dallas Turner last year or Laiatu Latu, and you selected Michael Penix, which was a huge shocker last year. But he looks to be the quarterback of the future for the Atlanta Falcons. So now, in hindsight, obviously that was a good pick. But it is damn time you select an edge rusher. And this edge class, luckily for them, is very good. Can he be Mike Green? I'm going to go Shamar Stewart here. Shamar Stewart, I love his intangibles, man. I really, really do. I think he's the best. With Mykel Williams off the board, I think Shamar Stewart has, the most potential out of, these guys that are still on the board as far as edge goes. But, maybe even a Jihad Campbell wouldn't be bad as well out of Alabama. I definitely considered that. But Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, man, go turn on the fucking tape. Go turn on the tape for Shamar Stewart. This guy, I like him. I really like him. Next up, my Arizona Cardinals, actually. No, I'm not selecting Luther Burden here. This has to be a defensive lineman here. I think we need to beef up the trenches. What am I doing? Not Walter Nolan. It's actually going to be another Michigan defensive tackle. Kenneth Grant to my Arizona Cardinals. I don't think I really have a lot of explaining to do. Kenneth Grant, a lot of people seem to know Kenneth Grant. He seems to be a popular figure in this draft class for some reason. Not for some reason, he's an amazing player, but a lot of people, who I've talked to who aren't even big, draft guys know who he is, and they don't know who, Mykel Williams or Jalen Walker is, but for some reason they know who Kenneth Grant is. So yeah, he seems to be like a popular figure, maybe just because he played for Michigan, I don't know. But a lot of people seem to know him, but I like Kenneth Grant going to the Arizona Cardinals here. I think it needs to be a defensive lineman for sure. Need to beef up that defensive line. But anyways, Cincinnati Bengals, this pick has to be defensive right here. Malachi Starks, to me, is probably the best player available, but for positional purposes, positional value, I don't think, the 17th pick taking a safety. I don't think this will be the pick. So I'm going to go Jihad Campbell here. Mike Green, definitely considering it. But Jihad Campbell here, I think he can go as early as like fucking 10 here. Honestly, Jihad Campbell is that guy. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks. This pick is easy for me. They need offensive line, and this guy pretty much falls into their lap. Kelvin Banks, for a lot of the draft season, was projected to go top 10. So if you can get what was looked at to previously be a top 10 talent in this draft, at 18, I think you're getting pretty solid value, I would say. And you should definitely be happy if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan. They need to protect Sam Darnold. That needs to be the number one priority as far as this draft goes. I couldn't really address it in free agency. So you definitely need to address it in, the draft. So we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers re-signing Chris Godwin. So I don't think this, pick will be wide receiver. We have some amazing wide receivers still on the board. Can you go Colston Loveland here? I actually kind of like Cade Otton. I've seen some mock drafts have them taking Colston Loveland here. I kind of like Cade Otton. I think he's actually kind of underrated. So I'm going to have them taking Mike Green here. I'll be honest. I watched a shit ton of college football last year. I didn't watch a single Marshall game. I'm going to keep it real with you guys. A lot of these people doing mock drafts on YouTube will not keep it real with you guys. They try to make it seem like they watch, these fucking FCS schools and stuff. They didn't. They're lying to you. But I turned on the tape for Mike Green, man. I didn't watch any Marshall games. I turned on the tape. I was like, why is everyone talking about this guy, and why have I never heard of him? Turn on the damn tape, man. This guy's an absolute game wrecker. He's a game wrecker. If he didn't go to Marshall, this guy would be a top 10 pick. I'm going to be honest. That's really the thing. He went to Marshall, so I don't think he's not getting the buzz that he sort of deserves. He's definitely getting some buzz, and he's for sure going to be not a number one pick, sorry. He's definitely going to be a first round pick. But just him playing at Marshall, I think, even for me, I was like, who the hell is this dude? But anyways, turning on the tape, I really like him. I think he's going to be a game wrecker. I like Mike Green. Anyways, the Denver Broncos. They need a tight end. Actually, no, they don't. They got Evan Ingram. Sorry. So Colston Loveland is not going to be the pick here. Matthew Golden is a wide receiver 2 for me in this draft. Luther Burden, like I said, I've fallen off with him. I guess I'll explain later. Matthew Golden is a pick for the Denver Broncos here. The Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of you guys are not going to like this pick, but it's not my fault. It's Aaron Rodgers' fault. He has not made up his goddamn mind. So until he makes up his mind, Mason Rudolph cannot be your starting quarterback next year. And it's going to be Jackson Dart. I think Jackson Dart is going to be a first rounder. I don't think he's going to go, some people have him going like fucking 6 to the Raiders, which I think is ridiculous. With Shedeur Sanders dropping, I think it makes more sense for Dart to drop as well into the 20s. I don't think, it's great value, I would say, as far as what he is as a quarterback. I'll be honest, I was high on Jackson Dart in college. Like, he was my pick at the start of the year to win the Heisman, and it was him and Jalen Milroe. He was one of my favorite, probably my favorite college quarterback this year. But as far as the NFL goes, I don't think he's, this, elite prospect. I definitely do not think that. But with the Pittsburgh Steelers having Mason Rudolph as their starting quarterback, I'm sorry, Steeler fans. I know Steelers have a very, very strong fan base, and a lot of them watch this channel. And a lot of you guys aren't going to like this, but it's not my damn fault. It's Aaron Rodgers. You can blame Aaron Rodgers, not me. Until he signs that dotted line and becomes a Pittsburgh Steeler, this is the pick. I'm sorry. And it might even be the pick, even if Aaron Rodgers resigns, because, he's 41 years old. So anyways, the Los Angeles Chargers, still some solid receivers here. They could definitely use some wide receiver help, but I'm going to go with the familiar with Jim Harbaugh, and that is Colston Loveland here. I think he's a stud tight end. I think, like I said, he's a top 15 player on my draft big board, so if you can get him at the pick 22, I think that's incredible value here. Green Bay Packers, they're going to select the guy I've sort of been talking about here. Luther Burden falls to the 23rd pick. The more I watch this guy, man, I was watching him throughout the season. I was watching Mizzou games, and he just got taken out of games. Like, this is a guy I don't think can be the alpha in your wide receiver room. Like, I really don't. I know this sounds hypocritical because I have him going to the Green Bay Packers, who desperately need an alpha wide receiver. They have a bunch of these wide receiver threes. As far as talent goes, he's probably going to be the most talented in this wide receiver room. That's why I sort of have him going here. But, Emeka Egbuka has sort of that same problem. I think he's going to benefit, playing with a stud receiver. You'll see where I have him going later on in the draft. But anyways, man, like, I think they suffer from, obviously not every wide receiver has to be this alpha wide receiver. But what I'm saying here is Luther Burden, man. He's just got shut down. He got taken out of games. And I don't think he should be touted as this, elite prospect. I don't think he's this elite wide receiver prospect. Some people have him over T-Mac, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. When you watch T-Mac, he's the best player on the field every single goddamn time. He, can take over games. He just catches everything. Anything you throw to T-Mac, he's catching that shit. But Luther Burden, man, I seen him get shut down. Like, I seen him absolutely get shut down. I know what a lot of people say to this. It's Brady Cook is not a good quarterback, which I actually agree with. Brady Cook definitely could be holding Luther Burden back. We'll see when he plays in the NFL. But I know it's fair criticism for, Brady Cook, to defend Luther Burden with Brady Cook not being a good quarterback. I know that's definitely a fair argument. But man, I just don't see it. I'm going to be honest, it's not a deep-in analysis or anything as far as Luther Burden, but I'm just not the highest on him, man. I don't see it with him. I really don't. Hopefully, I'm wrong and he turns out to have a great career, going to a solid situation in Green Bay. Could be definitely going to be a playoff team next year, I believe, in that tough NFC North, but, hopefully, it goes to the Green Bay with Jordan Love and a solid wide receiver room. And hopefully he turns out to be great, but we'll see. We'll see with Luther Burden, but as of, the hype he's getting throughout this whole draft season, the more I watch of him, I'm just like, man. I don't know, man. You got taken out of a lot of games. But I believe in the talent. I definitely believe in the talent. But anyways, that's sort of my little rant that probably didn't make any sense on Luther Burden. But anyways, we got the Minnesota Vikings here. Man, this is a team that had a pretty solid and underrated offseason. J.J. McCarthy is going to be the quarterback of the future, losing Sam Darnold, but they got Jonathan Allen. So I don't think At first, before they got Jonathan Allen, who else did they get? They got another defensive lineman. I can't think of who right now. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank because this video has been so long. So I don't. It would probably be Walter Nolan, the pick here. But man, I think Malachi Stark's still on the board, and with Harrison Smith getting up there in age, I think this is a perfect marriage. I really do. Like. Malachi Starks the Minnesota Vikings are actually the perfect team for Malachi Starks. Now that I think about it, Amarion Hampton could definitely be a pick here. They could use a running back with Aaron Jones getting up there in age, but I actually believe in Jordan Mason. They traded for Jordan Mason, who was sort of a sleeper pick. With McCaffrey being injured last year, Jordan Mason really played like a pretty solid running back. I think he has potential in this league for sure. I believe in him. I believe in not Malachi Starks. Who the fuck was I just talking about? Holy shit, this video has been so long. I don't even remember who the hell I was talking about. Anyways, fuck. The Houston Texans. I think they're a team that could definitely select Emeka Egbuka with Stephon Diggs going out, and then Tank Dell being injured. They could use offensive line. I think it has to be offensive line, trading Laramie Tunsil. So Josh Simmons. Gray Zabel is definitely a pick here that I think they can go with. There's a lot. Josh Connerly as well. But Josh Simmons still on the board. I'm going to take Josh Simmons. He has an injury. I don't know if it's an ACL injury, but I remember reading about it. It's a pretty serious injury. He didn't play for Ohio State in the college football playoff, and obviously didn't play in the Natty. But with Laramie Tunsil getting traded to the Washington Commanders, I think it has to be the pick here. But anyways, the Los Angeles Rams here, they can go a variety of ways here. They can go tackle. I think with Connerly and Zabel still on the board, Ariante Irsay. A lot of people like Donovan Jackson. Savon Revel, man, where is he at? Damn. PFF has dropped him a lot. He has an ACL injury, so I'm not too sure if he's going to be a first-round pick. But he is, after Barron and Will Johnson, he's my third corner. I think he's the third best corner. A lot of people like Maxwell Harrison. Ben Morrison, another player who I like, probably my four. But the Rams, I don't know if Savon Revel is going to be that. I don't know if he's going to be that first-round pick. James Pierce Jr. is still on the board. He has some character concerns, though. Emeka Egbuka, I don't think will be the pick with Devontae Adams going there, replacing Cooper Kupp. Man, the Rams actually have an interesting, pick going on. Now that I think about it, man. But I'm going to have them selecting an offensive lineman here. I'm going to have them selecting Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. This is a team that you need to protect Matthew Stafford. He's pushing 40 now. Just protect him, and maybe you can even extend his career a year or two, hopefully, if you can just protect him. But James Pierce Jr. or Donovan Ezeraku has to be the pick here if you're the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens defense fell off to what it was 2 years ago. Was still a decent group, but not quite that elite defense they were 2 years ago. So they just really need a guy that could, just change the game for them. And to me, I know Ezeraku is shooting up boards, but James Pierce Jr., I know about the character concerns, and I'm not, big on guys with character concerns. But man, I think James Pierce Jr. is going to be the pick here for the Baltimore Ravens. I know, teams that are in win now mode shouldn't really take, chances on these guys. But look what Jalen Carter did. I mean, and Jalen Carter was a top 5 pick. No, he was a top. Did he go 9? I think he should have been a top 5 pick. But he ended up falling to the Eagles at 9 or 10 or some shit. And they took him, like I said, in the top 10. So if you're taking James Pierce with the 27th pick, and you're a Super Bowl contender, I mean, that's nothing compared to taking someone with the 10th pick. But anyways, the Detroit Lions. I think with Jameson Williams constantly getting suspended, constantly just getting into damn trouble and doing stupid shit, Emeka Egbuka to the Detroit Lions, pair him up with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like I said earlier in the video, I think Emeka Egbuka is going to be solid if he's with a wide receiver who is a star or even a superstar. I don't know what you consider Amon-Ra St. Brown. To me, a top 5 wide receiver in the league. Maybe not top 5, actually. Top 7, I would say, if I really have to think about it. But Emeka Egbuka definitely is going to have no problems getting open. He's always played with a wide receiver who is better than him. Jeremiah Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr., like you name it. And I think he needs to go to a team like that in the NFL. He should not go to a team like the Green Bay Packers. Let me say that again. Let me repeat. He cannot go to a team like the Denver Broncos. He will not succeed if he's the one. I'm going to say that right now. Emeka Egbuka has sort of shot up boards. Towards the middle of the draft season, I had him as a second round pick, day 2 pick for most of the draft season and most of the college football season. I'll be honest. Some people are higher on him than I am. I'm higher on him than I once was. I still think he should be a first round pick, but like I said, he has no business going over Golden. That's for damn sure. Maybe not even Luther Burden as well. But the Washington Commanders, another interesting team here. I think they're a team. Do you go Ezraku here? Marion Hampton. This is a team that I definitely think could use a running back, beef up that running back room. You got Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler getting up there in age. But man, with I like Caleb Johnson over Marion Hampton, but I don't think Caleb Johnson will be a first round pick. So I just have to choose what I think who's going to be the second running back taken. So I'm going to take Marion Hampton to the Washington Commanders here. So that leaves the Buffalo Bills here. I think they can go a variety of ways here. I know I keep saying that, but towards the back, half of the first round, you never really know what teams are going to do. To me, Donovan Ezraku still being on the damn board is crazy. Donovan Ezraku is definitely the pick for the Buffalo Bills here. Walter Nolan, he has character concerns. If he didn't have these character concerns, they question his motor. When you got guys questioning your motor, that's definitely better than off the field stuff like drinking and driving and stuff. Because motor, you can. Some people say it can't be taught, but it can definitely be instilled in you. I believe at least. I know some people are going to say either you got it or you don't. But I definitely think it could, with the right coach, the right system. I definitely think that's not the biggest concern for me. The biggest concern for me is what you do, off the field. Like if you're drinking and driving, like I definitely would not take you in the first round if you're over there drinking and driving, doing stupid shit like that. But Nolan here, I like Josh Connerly going here. I'm gonna be honest, or even Irsay going here to the Kansas City Chiefs with Joe Thuney leaving. But Walter Nolan could be a steal if you take him here. I know, it might not be the biggest positional need, but Walter Nolan being here is... I couldn't have him not being a first-round pick, I'm going to be honest. The Philadelphia Eagles have the last pick, obviously, winning the Super Bowl, and they always seem to get a guy that's just fucking falls in the draft, and they end up getting the stud. It could very well be Walter Nolan or Donovan Ezraku here. I don't know why it says they need a wide receiver here. I don't know what this obsession of the wide receiver 3 being a position of need for the Philadelphia Eagles. To me, their wide receiver 3 is like a Dallas Goedert. Like, this guy's an amazing pass catcher. And obviously they won the Super Bowl with what they had. But as far as, what they can do here, I like this guy here. I like Tyler Booker. I'm going to be honest. I know he had a bad combine. He had a pretty, poor combine. But I still like him. And going to the Philadelphia Eagles here, I think, going with the 32nd pick is not a reach here. I know some earlier on in the draft season, I had him going like fucking 16 or something to the Cardinals. But I like Tyler Booker. I still think he's a first-round talent. Just because you have a bad combine, that doesn't define you. We've seen superstar players have horrible combines, honestly. So I'm not, the biggest on the combine. I've already had the rant in previous mock drafts. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about this mock draft down below. I'm sure I'm going to have some angry, fan base fan bases out there, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the mock draft. I'm very excited for this mock draft season. I'm very excited for this NFL draft next week. 2025 NFL mock draft. Let me know who you guys want your favorite team to be selecting. I'm expecting some angry Pittsburgh Steelers fans. I always get those, and they're fucking huge fan base. Sorry, I cannot talk. It's been a very fucking long video. Anyways, I gotta go. It's been a long video. Let me know if you guys like this video down below. Make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.